Okie dokie. Just at the back there with the blonde hair.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then why...
I'm
Caitlin.
Caitlin, okay.
Why are we still paying university fees, and why are funds being cut so massively for universities?
What we've got now is, look, when I went to university, only 5% of the age group got to university. So it was only 5%, a small minority. When my mother wanted to go to university and was not able to do so, and she always regretted that. Now we're in a position where more than 40% of the age group is going to university, and we want to raise that to 50% and more, just like other countries are doing. So how do we do it? How do you go from a situation where you've got 5% of the age group going to university to where you've got 50% of the age group? And so we had to think, what is the system of payment that will actually meet the needs of getting everybody the chance of education who wants it, while at the same time not being so expensive for people who never go to university that they've got to pay so much in taxation. So we said it's really a tripartite arrangement. One, the government will pay its share. Secondly, families where there is resources will contribute to their sons and daughters' education. And thirdly, we will have a loan system that's based on a repayment later on. And this tripartite arrangement of sharing the costs, I know it's difficult and I know it's tough, but given that university graduates earn on average twice as much as people who are not university graduates, I think the rest of the population will feel it fairer if there was a contribution made from your future earnings. So that's why we devised the new system. It's different from other countries, but it's a better and fairer system than the United States of America and some other countries. And what we've done is now got more students at university this year than at any year in our history. But in addition, there are more students getting grants than at any year in our history, so we've expanded grants. The payback for the tuition fees, the loans, is on the basis of you don't pay back until you're earning over a certain amount, you pay it at a low interest rate, and you can suspend the payments for a period of time for reasons that are agreed with the authorities. So we're trying to create a fairer system where the balance is between parents and the government and the student who eventually earns more money. And I know it's incredibly difficult because you've got to think ahead about what you want to do and therefore the cost that you have to pay at a later stage. But I do say there are more people going to university. For the first time, actually, the majority of people at university are women students, and that is a big change, a big progress as well. And soon there will be more women graduates than male graduates, and there are more women going into law, more women going into than men, more women going into accountancy, more women going into medicine. And so there's a huge change taking place as well, where there's a widening of opportunities. But I've got to say, it's something that we just had to do. We had to make a change to enable us to accommodate the fact we've got 2 million students in Britain, and that's why we had to make the change. So I hope you will want us to continue to have more people given the chance of going to college and university. There are 20,000 more students going this year, 10,000 more went last year, and even in straitened financial times when things are very difficult, we're still trying to expand the number of university places.
Okie dokie. Right at the back with the hand up with the check shirt.
Hi, I'm James. Last night the Liberal Democrats put very heavy emphasis on tax cuts, and I can see these being very popular, especially in the wake of a recession. I was wondering, what are the Labour's stance on this?
Well, the first thing we've got to do is get out of recession and make sure we've got a recovery. And that's what I found disappointing about last night, that neither of the other two parties have a policy for now. What do we do now? You've got big choices to make in the next few weeks. We had a bank collapse. We had to decide basically this: could the banks keep going in their present form, or had they to be completely restructured? And the banks failed the country, and the banking system was in danger of collapse, and people's deposits and savings were at risk. So we had to intervene to sort out the banks. And we had to decide that the problem was fundamental, that they didn't have enough capital. They had to be recapitalised, either nationalised or recapitalised. And we led the world in doing that, recognising that was a problem in Britain. And then we've had a recession that is a result of a banking crisis globally and that means that you've got a deficit. So you have a deficit because you've been trying to keep the economy moving forward at a time when there's very little private investment and very little happening in the private sector. So the government has had to bear the burden of keeping economic activity going in our country, guaranteeing loans to businesses, helping small businesses, helping people stop losing their jobs, tax credits to keep people in work who are in part-time work, helping young people get jobs if they've been unemployed for a few months, all these things, helping mortgage owners with things. So that's been the cause of the lack of growth, and the help we've given has led to the deficit rising. So what do we do this year? This year, the economy is fragile, so we've got to keep growth moving forward. Let the economy move backwards now, and you'll find that jobs are lost and businesses are lost and the opportunities of the future go, and you have even higher deficits. So the issue this year is keeping the money in the economy so that we can have the growth we need and don't lose jobs and businesses. And you know yourself, if you had half the money to spend this year than last year, you'd be spending less, there'd be less consumer power, there'd be less money going into the shops, there'd be less people employed, less job businesses as a result. If we take £6,000 million out of the economy in the next few weeks, then you know the effect. We've lost jobs and lost businesses. So that's the first question. So we've given businesses rates reductions to keep their businesses going. We're giving them loans to help them out at the time being. We're still protecting mortgage. We've got 100,000 in the Future Jobs Fund. We're keeping school leavers in education over the next few months. So that's the first big choice. Next year, 2011, as the economy is growing again and as jobs are being created and as we've got a faster growth rate, that's the time when we've said, look, to pay for health and to pay for policing and to pay for our schools and education, we've got to raise national insurance. And that's the decision that people have got to make. Because if we don't have our decent public services, and we've got our candidates here, Celia Barlow, we've got Nancy Platts, we've got Simon Burgess, we know the value of our health service, and we know the value of investment in our schools, and we know the value of investment in policing. And therefore, the national insurance rise is to pay for that as we reduce the deficit over the next period of time. So I don't think it's very easy for parties to talk about tax cuts at the moment. We've got to pay down the deficit. We've got to ensure we get the growth that we need this year to keep our jobs in being. And at the same time, of course, we've got to make sure that the public services are protected. We can talk about changes in the taxation system over the next few years, but at the moment, these are the things I think we've got to do.
Can I add something that doesn't get mentioned a huge amount, but I think you'll agree with me on this, that the recession actually came from this debt repackaging. We all know this. Debt repackaging, nothing to do with Labour Party policy. Debt repackaging, which is casino capitalism, which comes under kind of the Tory party thing. It's that kind of end of town. It's that Margaret Thatcher, Milton Friedman economic stuff, the Big Bang, all that. That's where it came from.
Well, you know what happened in America? There was a thing called subprime mortgages. And people were getting mortgages that they probably didn't even know they had at a cheap price. And these subprime mortgages were all packaged up and they were sold to people and then sold to other people and then sold to other people. They were rated AAA in the United States of America and said these were great products, so everybody wanted to buy them. Half the subprime products were bought by European banks, a lot of them by British banks, but they were rated by the American authorities as the best thing to buy. And then they were found out to be absolutely worthless. And this is what happened. You had all these banks entangled with each other. We were not in a position to know all the detail that was happening behind the surface in these banks. And there was a failure of regulation globally to deal with the problems. So we should not get back to a situation where that happens. And I do fear that the banks are too quick to try to get back to business as usual. Yeah. And we have got to make sure that the banks repay every penny of money that we have loaned them to make sure that they survive this crisis.
Because the Tories didn't have financial regulation, did they?
They were against it most of the time, yeah.